Yo, what's going on everyone? Miles Midoriya here with a review of Danmachi Season 4 Episode 10. This episode right here had a lot in it. It was brutal, some emotion, backstory, just so much stuff. The first scene we see is Marie. She doesn't like the sound of the monster and she's scared. She says she knows about it. They said something very terrifying happens whenever you hear that sound. The scene moves to Belle's friends. They are reacting to the sound. Lily says it's almost like the dungeon is screaming out in anguish. Welf mentions that it seems like it's coming from the 27th floor. We then hear Cassandra drop down to the floor and she's scared. She knew all of this was going to happen. We finally get to see the monster and this thing looks dangerous. The scene turns to, I apologize if I mess up any names throughout this video. I try to pronounce it as best as I can. Uranos, who is shocked, telling Fels that the thing has spawned and he can't believe it's happening again. It will be an awful tragedy just like before, which indicates he knows all about it. Fels is trying to figure out what he's talking about and he says disaster has just been reborn. When he says this happening again, referring to Ryu's familia that got trapped and this monster popped up, nearly defeating all of them besides Ryu. After that, we see this monster just tear through these adventurers like they're nothing. I felt so sad for them because they tried to get away from it, but it was too fast and they were defeated. We see Boris and his group. He tells them it's time to go. He had a feeling like something is about to happen. He's right. They got to get away from that area. Because that monster is in the same area as them. That group before was looking to meet back up with Boris. And this thing is on its way. The scene goes to Belle, Ryu, and Jura. And Jura's just laughing. He's happy that it popped up again, saying to Belle, seeing Ryu act like that hasn't tipped him off yet, that he summoned the same monster that defeated her familia. He brought up about like 5 years ago, the Estrella familia was constantly fighting the Rudra familia, and that the Estrella familia was doing it for justice or something. He said they were pesky flies that kept getting in the way, and that's why they set a trap for them in a dungeon to get rid of them. Belle starts to remember when they were on the 18th floor and Ryu was talking about her familia, and that means this guy's responsible for what happened to them. Jura continues saying that it's the same as before. They stacked on blaze rocks, luring Ryu's familia into the dungeon, intending to blow it up and leave them under the rubble. Except they didn't go down that easy. They survived. But that's when something happened that none of them could have foreseen. Jura says the dungeon gave birth to an abomination, a totally insane monster that no one had seen or heard of before. So when we heard some of the stories about Ryu's familia, many of us, or some of us, may have thought they planned that monster, but it wasn't even that. They didn't even know what was going to happen. We go back to Uranos. He says normally nothing like this should occur. Adventurers destroying a part of the dungeon is inconsequential. It should only prompt the dungeon to begin restoring itself back to its normal state. Fail says if the damage exceeds what it can repair, or rather if someone made it a point to inflict an overwhelming amount of damage, Uranos takes over back talking, adding in that the dungeon would then prioritize eliminating that someone over anything else. Excessive damage triggers its self-preservation instincts, and the dungeon suffers so much misery from it. Fail says, what happened 5 years ago, will it happen again? And he responded, he's afraid so. That's pretty interesting that if you do too much damage in this dungeon, that thing would pop up. Normally, from what we've seen throughout some of the seasons, we haven't seen them do that much damage while they were in the dungeon. Obviously, that would have to be a lot of damage, so some of them got away pretty lucky. Back to Jura, he brings up that on that day when it all happened, all of his allies were eliminated, as well as some of the people from the Estrella familia. So he spent 5 years studying it. Even the people from Evilus that he was around had no idea. It was because he did it by his lonesome. He studied that thing to the last detail. So he was dedicated to repeating everything to bring this monster back. Moving forward through the scenes, Belle asks him, why did you bring back this horrific monster a second time? Jura says because he wants to tame it. He was mesmerized by it when he first saw it. This dude is wildin'. Ryu then jumps in saying that there's no way he can control it. He brings up the magic item that he has shown off in episode 9. Once he has control of it, it will be nothing that scares him anymore. Nobody could threaten him again, not even Ryu. Bruh, he really out here just trying to make sure he has protection from anything at the cost of other adventurers getting hurt. Like, you could have worked hard to get stronger, or you could have worked with another team that was stronger. When it comes to characters like this, we all know how it tends to end up with him saying he's trying to tame the monster. We all know that's not going to go well. The scene jumps to Belle's friends and they hear a sound of an adventurer, probably who ran into the monster, and Lily says she wants everyone to go to the 27th floor. No, don't do that. Anything but that. I know she doesn't know what's going on, but they do not need to go down to that floor. Cassandra grabs Lily and she's crying, saying that she knew a disaster was looming but couldn't do anything. And because they are alive right now, she is sure that on the 27th floor, many other people are getting hurt instead. Everyone seemed to understand. I know they might not believe her every time she brings something up that hasn't happened yet, but I hope they believe her this time and they don't go down there. The other adventures that went down instead, even if she would have told them, it still would have been a 50-50 chance that they believed her. Marie pops up again saying that it's already started. She's scared and wants to go far away. But she starts to think about Bell. She wants to be with him and wonders where he's at. I do think she may play a role in the next episode when it comes to Bell. We return to Uranus, who mentions that they had no choice but to cover up the incident related to it and never disclose anything to the public. Naturally, there's absolutely no information about it in the guild records either. However, there is an exception, the Xenos. 5 years ago, they could sense that something was wrong and were more terrified than anyone, so he told them everything. He asked for their assistance in making sure that nothing like this would ever happen again, and Fail says, but now in case of an awful timing, that they are busy helping seize complete control over Gnosis. So they have no way to respond swiftly, and Uranus brings up the ones that happen to be in his path are the Hestia Familia. With him not letting anyone know, it's kinda understandable because no telling who else would try to do that again. Also, now it makes sense why Marie knew a little bit about it and was scared. The scene goes back to Bell, Ryu, and Jura. Bell brings up Boris and wants to go help them. Then Ryu says it's impossible, fighting it won't end well. Of course, Jura has something to say. He was saying Ryu was so desperate to keep herself alive during that battle that she let her friends get hurt without trying to help. Then continued saying that she outright eliminated all of her friends with her own hands, and Ryu just gets tired of it and tells him to shut up repeatedly, and you can just feel and just see the emotion that they did with this character. Just taking a guess that her friends were extremely hurt by the monster. There wasn't enough time to try to get everyone out of there. They didn't want to get defeated by the monster, and she had to do what she had to do, possibly. The monster is chasing Boris and the group, and they are heading in the same direction as Bell. Between that, Fails asked Uranus, is there anything they could do? He replied, no matter what they do, it will be too late, and that thing will continue until it eliminates everyone in that area. That's the entire purpose of its existence. It was brought up, and the name of this monster is called Juggernaut. We see the monster get rid of more adventurers. It starts to go towards Boris, but Bell picks up a sword and charges to attack it. I think Ryu would have wanted to help, but she's shaken up and remembering what happened last time. Bell mentions that the monster hardly has any armor. That means it's a monster built for speed and offense, that he can handle it. All it comes down to is striking first. Well, that didn't go well. This thing is just dodging his attacks. When Bell tried to go for another attack and seen that it avoided it, he did mention about the size of the monster and thought it would have been a little bit slower, but just like he mentioned earlier, this thing really does have speed. While fighting, Bell mentions that running is not an option. Everyone's still there and he wants to make sure that they're good. He does try to use Firebolt. Ryu yells out no. He uses it and gets pushed back. It looks like some type of barrier is around the monster. Just all around, this monster looks like it's overpowered. Like just nothing is really stopping it. Bell tries to counter it, but it's too late. The monster was so fast that it sliced part of Bell's arm off going into the water. Then he swings his tail at Bell's neck and you hear like a crack. And Bell flies off to a different part of the area, and of course that's where they end the episode. I think that Marie may end up helping Bell. That could be just a coincidence, but his arm flying into the water, she could find it and go to where he is and somewhat help him. Overall, they delivered in this episode. All that was leading up and building up to this, and we aren't even done yet, so no telling what else is going to happen. Comment below, what are your thoughts and opinions on this episode? Thank you all for watching this video. Here's some more reviews, and I'll see you all in the next one.